like to welcome you to episode 516 of the Unpopular Podcast. This is the man, the myth, the legend, Jalen Hunter. Here at the Unpopular Podcast, normally ask you to agree with me and ask you to hear me out. I want to start this episode off by dispelling a notion. Contrary to popular belief, our opinions don't have as much effect on other people as we think it does. Not saying that it doesn't have an effect at all, but I don't think our opinions have a strong effect, or let me say this, I don't think our opinions are as important to other people as we think they are. Doesn't mean our opinions aren't important, just might not be important to other people as much as we think. I want to talk about this Damian Lillard situation. Let me first say congratulations to Damian Lillard for signing a 3-year, $42 million deal to go back to Portland. He also has a no-trade clause. We'll talk about that in a second. But Damian Lillard is back in Portland, back where he started his career and back essentially where home is. And the reason why I wanted to start this episode with dispelling that notion is because you're hearing a lot of people sort of rewrite why Damian Lillard essentially went to the Bucks in the first place. Damian Lillard played 95% of his career in Portland. Now, in that time, he hasn't found the success as far as championship, even competing for a championship, as much as you would hope a player of his caliber would find. He's on an NBA All-75 team, one of the best scorers at the guard position the NBA has ever seen. We know who Damian Lillard is. The thing is, though, he's never really been in conversation for the ultimate prize, which is the NBA championship. And you're hearing people talk about the reason why he went to Milwaukee in the first place is because people and the whole ring culture made it seem, we kind of forced him to want to leave. We, as far as media, as far as fans, forced Damian Lillard to want to leave to go pursue winning a championship. I think half of that is true and half of it is not. The half that I think is true is when you listen to Damian Lillard talk, when you listen to him talk his entire career, you know that something that means the world to him would be winning a championship. He's an uber competitive guy. He is considered, especially in his time, probably top 2 or 3 in the guard position when we talk about, where he ranks in his, in his class. And I'm sure it ate at him that every single year, as great as Damian Lillard is, as many accolades and accomplishments he singularly collected, his team was never really in a position to win a championship. So I'm sure that ate at him. I mean, there's a stat going around. Damian Lillard has never, I repeat, Damian Lillard has never beat Steph Curry in the playoffs. I'm sure as a competitor that eats at you. So I don't think that our opinions, our noise really had anything to do with Damian Lillard saying, yo, I've spent most of my career here, and even with me being here and me playing at the level that I play, there's no way of winning. Well, there's no path of a championship for here, even with me. Which then gets me to the point where he's like, yo, or gets him to the point, where he's like, yo, I want to win a championship, and I can't do it here. I don't think that was us saying, hey, yo, if you don't win a championship, I don't know, bro. No. That's what Damian Lillard wanted to do. That's what he wants to do. And then I also want to remember, or I want you guys to remember, And this kind of goes back to now why he has a no trade clause. Damian Lillard had one destination, and people kind of killed him for that, and I understand. I had some words because it's like, yo, if you're going to try to force a trade, right? If you're going to tell the team that you've been with, yo, I don't want to be here. I understand wanting to essentially dictate where you go, but when you say, yo, there's only one place I want to go, that really shortchanges the team that you're at. Because if I'm the team that you say you want to go to, why would I give you anything of value that's remotely close? Because the player that you're trying to trade to me has already said he doesn't want to go anywhere else but this team. So, yeah, there was some opinions that was had about him only wanting to go to Miami. But remember, at the time, Miami had Jimmy Butler, they had Bam Adebayo, they had Tyler Hero, and what was the consensus was all they really need is another star player, which obviously is Damian Lillard. So he wanted to win, and he felt the best avenue for him to win was to go to a team that at the time looked primed for a playoff run in Miami. Then he ended up in Milwaukee, which, don't get me wrong, I think Milwaukee is a much better place to end up than Miami when we talk about the assets that they have and Giannis Antetokounmpo being there. But that's not where he wanted to go, which then causes, being homesick and this, that, and the third. And, I think we talked about it when he got hurt. I don't need to rehash everything that went on with Milwaukee, but what I will say is nothing that they wanted to accomplish happened. When you have arguably the best duo, when we talk about name to paper, when you have arguably the best duo on paper in the East, and you don't win a playoff series, now, yes, I understand that injuries played a part, but that's sports. Injuries always play a part. You have to prepare for that. So, we also talked about Damian Lillard tearing his Achilles, unfortunately, and also being waived by the Bucks. Which, now when you look, he is getting paid, I think, upwards of $77 million next year. Half of that, 42, or some of that is obviously from Portland, and most of that is from Milwaukee. Milwaukee has a obviously it's a joke, but Milwaukee clearly just loves paying people. I think they're still paying Mike Budenholzer. I don't remember homie's name, but the coach that was after him, and they're paying Doc Rivers. And obviously they're paying essentially Damian Lillard not to be there. Look, Damian Lillard is one of the best players the league has ever seen. He's one of the best scoring guards the league has ever seen. I think that you can argue with his tenure in the NBA, he was either 2 or 3 when we talk about guards. I think number 1 is clearly Steph Curry. But you can argue that Damian Lillard would land at 2. Damian Lillard is in that same class with, or he's in the same conversation as a Russell Westbrook, as a Kyrie Irving, as a Chris Paul in his time. But even with that being true, it was a failure in Milwaukee. And what he wanted to accomplish, and I also believe that because reports are also saying, Damian Lillard still is loyal and he wanted to stay in Milwaukee. That doesn't mean he wanted to essentially be there. He wanted to stay in Milwaukee because he wanted to finish out his deal. He wanted to try to win a championship because he has now entered into a new phase in his career. And that new phase is the retirement tour. And I'm not saying that he's going to retire to next year or he doesn't have 3 years left. But it is extremely true that Damian Lillard is closer to the end of his career than the beginning. Especially with he's going to be out an entire year next year rehabbing from the torn Achilles. So I feel like that's why there's a no trade clause. Because even if he wants to be traded, you don't want to go through what you went through last time, saying, "Hey, I want to go here," and then the team was like, "Ah." Even though I understand why the team would do that, it seems like, we have a better opportunity to trade you here, so we're going to trade you here. I get it, and it's also crazy how Portland traded Damian Lillard essentially for like Drew Holiday and a bunch of pieces. And now, obviously, they rerouted Drew Holiday to go to Boston. And now Portland has Damian Lillard and Drew Holiday. I don't know if Drew Holiday is going to stay or not, but all signs, I mean, you see the whole welcome thing. All signs are saying Drew Holiday staying on this team. So, and Portland has a good young team. Denny Abdia, see what happens with Scoot Henderson. This is a young core. Shaden Sharp, like this is a young core that is a good core. They're not a championship caliber team. Not even, and we're also entering to this phase. Obviously, Damian Lillard's not going to be there next year, but he's not the best player on this team. At this moment of his career, especially what we saw in Milwaukee, as great as he can be, he is not the best player. So I do think I would be surprised if by the end of this contract, we haven't heard A, that he's going to retire soon, and B, I'd be shocked if he is somewhere else. The reason why you go to Portland is essentially because you want to end your career there. Do I think that he would want to go back to Portland if he won a championship with Milwaukee? Probably. I think he loves Portland. I think, the place that drafted you, the place that you had your entire career there, yeah, I think he would want to go back, but the feelings would be different. We look at Damian Lillard differently. The thing that he set out to accomplish once he requested a trade the first time, he would have accomplished. And I think that we look at him differently. But that didn't happen. And I think that again, shout out to Damian Lillard. He's getting paid a lot of money by a team that doesn't even have him anymore. But I do think that it's Damian Lillard essentially pursued something that 99% of players go into the league wanting to get, and that is a championship. Obviously, there's money involved, trying to set your family up, cool. But 99% of players get into the league, and especially the players that's on his level, they want to win a championship. And that's what he essentially requested a trade out of Portland to do. The fact that it didn't happen is unfortunate, but that's what he wanted. And now I feel like he understands he's in a part of his career where you are the veteran. You are the vet. You're unk, essentially. And I think that we are seeing. I would be a little shocked, depending on what happens that last year, obviously. I would be a little shocked because I think Damian Lillard's, 36, 37 years old? I'd be a little shocked if he gets another contract. But that doesn't negate and take away from who Damian Lillard is. And there's a reason why it is news that Damian Lillard went back to Portland. Congratulations to Damian Lillard. I know, again, championship is I'm not going to consider it a failure, but he definitely did not reach his goal when he left or when he requested a trade out of Portland. But Damian Lillard is still him. I do still wish for a speedy recovery. And, yeah. It's interesting. We're at a point of the NBA where things are drastically going to change in the next 3 to 4 years. Like some of the players that we grew up watching is going to be gone. Like think about it. In the next let's say 3 to 5. In the next 3 to 5 years, I don't think we're going to see Steph Curry. I don't think we're going to see Chris Paul for sure. I don't think we're going to see LeBron James. I don't know if we're going to see KD. I don't think we're going to see Damian Lillard. The league is changing. Maybe Draymond Green gets up out of there. Maybe Klay Thompson gets up out of there. Kyrie Irving, maybe. Like players are getting older, and we're essentially seeing the end of an era in the next 3 to 5 years. Because in the next 5 years, I think Steph Curry would be 43 years old. I don't foresee him playing that long. I definitely don't see Bron playing that long. He'd be 46, 45? Like, come on, man. Yeah. Damian Lillard is one of those players, and it's unfortunate, but that's just the reality of it. There are some players that never reach that ultimate goal. And I think that is where the public has to be, and the viewer, the fans, have to have a little bit of understanding and sympathy. I think that where I will agree with is, and I think LeBron James talked about it and a bunch of people talk about it, that's where the ring culture is a ring chasing culture is an issue, in a sense of, I think that if you don't win a ring, public, the fans, the media writers, whatever, they're going to discredit your career. The way that they talk about people, prime example, both incredible, right? But the way that they talk about someone like Kawhi Leonard compared to the way they talk about someone like Carmelo Anthony, completely different. Now, yes, both completely different styles, and both are great players. But the way that Carmelo, he never reached the promised land, and obviously Kawhi Leonard did. I just don't. It's unfortunate that it's going to happen because, again, people discredit Charles Barkley. People discredit John Stockton and what Utah had going on. People discredit careers that don't ultimately have a championship. And I'm like, think about it, man. Obviously, us outside looking in, we're never really going to know. But do you understand how difficult it is to win a championship? In Damian Lillard's era, right? When you look at those Portland teams, they were never going to go. They were never going to get past those Steph Curry, Golden State Warrior teams. Bro, they had KD. They were never going to get past that Lakers. Because remember the bubble. They were never going to get past that Lakers 2020 team. Never. They never were going to get past Denver Nuggets and Jokic. Or that Suns team when you had Chris Paul and DeAndre Ayton and Devin Booker. You were never going to get past that team because Portland just didn't have, all you had was Dame and CJ McCollum. So it's like they beat the Rockets when they had Dwight Howard and James Harden, but you know who they had to see second round. All I'm saying is, yeah, and I'm sure Damian Lillard would love a championship. It sucks that he probably will end his career never winning one, never even getting to one. But that doesn't take away from who the hell Damian Lillard is. Damian Lillard is still one of them ones. Let's not get that confused. So, congratulations again to Damian Lillard for re-signing with the Portland Trail Blazers, 3 years, $42 million, no trade clause, because I'm sure he don't want that situation where it's like, hey, towards the end of his contract, we might want to get your body here. Like, nah, we're not doing that again. And I do think it's crazy that the Bucks are paying him more next year not to play than Portland is, and he's on a crazy. Congrats. Speaking of congrats, let me talk about this TJ Watt contract. Because when people hear me talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers, when people hear me talk about TJ Watt, because for people that don't remember, I didn't think it was smart for the Pittsburgh Steelers to essentially re-sign TJ Watt. In fact, I said it would probably be smarter to trade TJ Watt at this moment because, again, he's not happy with the situation. You guys don't want to pay him what he feels he's worth, and there is a plethora of teams that would willing to give up a lot for someone like TJ Watt. And when people hear me say that, they think I'm saying that TJ Watt is trash or, Pittsburgh should want nothing to do with it. I'm not saying that. TJ Watt and the Pittsburgh Steelers agree on a 3-year, $123 million contract extension, making him the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. Do I think that TJ Watt is worth 3 years, $123 million? Yes. I think that he has been the best, if not one of the best defensive players since he's come into the league. He has been a staple in Pittsburgh. In fact, when you look at everyone that's in Pittsburgh right now, he is the face of Pittsburgh Steelers. And I understand completely why he felt he deserved that type of money while he held out. And essentially, I understand why the Pittsburgh Steelers essentially gave him the contract that they gave him. He is uber important to the Steelers. And when you're a team that essentially has a cornerstone player, especially at the prime of which he is, a lot of people think that he should have won Defensive Player of the Year a year ago. I understand why you would pay him this type of money, And I don't think they were wrong for paying because this is what they wanted to do. Everybody knows Pittsburgh is known for defense. That is their calling card. That has been their calling card essentially since the iteration of this team. There's a reason why they were nicknamed the Steel Curtain for such a long time. I understand when your best defensive player is up for a contract and you guys are pretty much at a standstill, you want to try everything you can to get it right. And obviously he agreed to a record deal. He is okay with what they were willing to offer. So shout out to TJ Watt. I don't even want to say but. I want to paint a picture now. I want to paint a picture of what this means for the Pittsburgh Steelers. It essentially means that after next year, you don't really have an offensive direction because Aaron Rodgers signed a 1-year deal. You still are going to have DK Metcalf. You still are going to have the young pieces that you have, Pat Freiermuth and Jalen Warren, but you don't really have a direction quarterback-wise. Unless Will Howard, the rookie out of Ohio State, won a national championship, unless Will Howard just turns into the man, or you find a way to trade for a quarterback. But we're going to talk about quarterbacks a little bit later in the show. But unless there's some type of disgruntled situation going somewhere, most high-level quarterbacks aren't really available for trade. I just want to put that out there. However, one thing that we do know is the Pittsburgh Steelers defense is going to be A-okay. Look, I think the Pittsburgh Steelers has done a horrible job with planning for the future. Ever since Big Ben. And I understand the thought of, well, we don't really have to because we have someone as great as Big Ben. I get it. But it just felt like it never dawned on somebody in that organization that we're not going to have Big Ben forever. Which is clearly evident by just how many quarterbacks we've seen them have since Big Ben. And none of them, not even Russ, not even Justin, none of them has panned out. And I was talking to a Steelers fan after this TJ Watt news, and obviously they were happy because TJ Watt is the face of Pittsburgh. But they were like, yo, look at Kansas City. And they drafted Patrick Mahomes. Look at Baltimore. They drafted Lamar Jackson. Look at Buffalo. They drafted Josh Allen. I'm sorry. Look at Cincinnati. They drafted Joe Burrow. Look at Washington. They drafted Jaden Daniels. We're going to be okay. We'll just draft somebody. And this not only is one of my issues with this situation, but this is why I said it's important. Like, as much as I don't want to give up one of the best defensive players in the league, this is why I would have traded TJ Watt. Newsflash, bro. I don't think there is a Jaden Daniels, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. I don't think that there is one of them in this year, next year, or the year after draft. On top of that, if you just so happen to be bad enough to get those one of those coveted picks, are you going to hit on that draft? Which brings me to my last statement. I do not think you're going to be bad enough because we know what the Pittsburgh Steelers have tried to do and what they've done with Mike Tomlin. They have tried to keep his never finishing the season below 500 record strong. So it's like, and I think this year is going to be, I don't think they're going to go, this possibly could be a year, but I think Aaron Rodgers still has enough in the take where he can drag this team to a 500 record. Look, it does sound like hate. I know it does. And it sounds like I'm crapping on the Pittsburgh Steelers. I know it sounds like I'm crapping on TJ Watt. I'm not. I think TJ Watt deserves the money that they gave him. I think he should have held out. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers, it was in their best immediate interest to re-sign TJ Watt. But it kind of goes back to what I talked about last episode with the Golden State Warriors. The whole two-timeline thing doesn't work. And the Pittsburgh Steelers have clearly shown that they're not really great with planning the future out. Well, on top of that, they're also not great at competing for championships, at least right now. Because, again, I hate to do this because obviously he's a black coach and there's not a lot of them, and I want everyone black to succeed. I don't care how you feel. I want Mike Tomlin to succeed. So I hate bringing up this stat, but it is true when we talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers. Mike Tomlin has never finished a season under 500. Shout out to him. In the same breath, how many playoff wins does he have since Big Ben has left? I don't think they're going to be bad enough to get one of those coveted quarterbacks. But that's the thing. I also don't think that there's many coveted quarterbacks coming out of the draft. Because when I'm looking at the landscape of college football right now, what I see is there are some NFL-ready wide receivers. We talk about Ryan Williams, Jeremiah. Like, there are some of them coming, like, right now. You also have running backs going crazy in college football. Homie from Notre Dame, like, do you think Archie Manning is really going to be that? It could. He could. But I'll ask you this. What do you think would have been easier and would have garnished more success? I'm asking Pittsburgh Steelers fans. Waiting out, hoping to get someone like Archie Manning, hoping that he is the future, or building up a trade package that can involve someone like Trevor Lawrence or involve someone like Justin Herbert. Not saying that they're going to, not saying that they automatically could have got them, but get someone that's a little more established, or maybe a Kyler Murray. What do you think would have been? What avenue would have put you more in a championship caliber way, or a championship caliber road? Again, it sounds like hate. I know it does, and I don't hate the move. I'm just realistic of what this move spells, and this move spells the same old Pittsburgh Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers that's always going to make sure their defense is A1, always going to secure the defense before they handle the offense. And the Pittsburgh Steelers, at least recently, that is the middle of the pack. Because I even look in your division. I don't think Pittsburgh is anywhere close to the Baltimore Ravens. I don't think they're anywhere close to the Cincinnati Bengals, and that's only because of Joe Burrow. Not because the Cincinnati Bengals suck. But Joe Burrow and that offense is great. Yes, I think they're better than the Cleveland Browns. But I will say, at least right now, it looks like the Cleveland Browns have a clearer future than the Pittsburgh Steelers when we talk about Shedeur Sanders. So, yeah. Again, congratulations to T.J. Watt. I know it sounds like I'm crapping on him. I'm not. I think, again, T.J. Watt is one of the best, if not the best defensive player in football, and I think it's well-deserved. I'm also interested to see what this means for the market, because I don't know what the hell the Cowboys are doing, but you keep letting these type of players get contracts, like Myles Garrett contract, T.J. Watt contract. Michael Parsons is younger than both. And some could argue that he's better than both. And you still ain't get a contract done with him. And so every time he sees these type of moves, and even when we talk about age range, when you see what Jamar Chase got, when you see what Saquon got, when you see what CeeDee Lamb got, I don't know why they waiting. Don't know why they're waiting, but he's just getting more expensive by the day. I know the Cowboys are religious in waiting till the absolute last second to pay somebody, but that costs them more money. if you look, they waited to pay Dak Prescott. Now look what that contract looks like, especially if they don't reach any expectations next year, which I don't think they will, because I don't think they're better than Washington. I don't think they're better than Philadelphia, for sure. CeeDee Lamb, I mean, but then you're also going to probably have to pay George Pickens. So I don't know. But congratulations for TJ Watt for getting the 3-year, $123 million extension. Again, highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. Rightfully deserved. Shout out to you. Speaking of shout out, I want to talk about the WNBA Allstar Weekend, which is happening currently right now. Yesterday we saw the 3-point contest and everything, and I want to give flowers. Shout out to the stud buds. I think that's Courtney Williams, and I forgot the young ladies. In fact, I'll look it up because they are. I was wondering, like, Courtney Williams and Natasha Hedman. I know I butchered your name. I apologize. Congratulations to y'all, though. I was wondering, one thing that the NBA has struggled wildly when it comes to their All-Star game. Their All-Star Weekend hasn't been great for a minute. However, one thing that they have done is they've tapped in with the streaming community. I feel that right now we're in a streaming era. When you look at some of the top names in the world, most of them are streamers, whether you talk about Kai Cenat, whether you talk about iShowSpeed, Aiden Ross. You can feel how you feel about him, but he is one of the big names in the world right now. You also have Drewski. I know he's a comedian, but he also does a little bit of streaming. You know what I'm saying? So some of the biggest names, hell, we even see athletes, players doing it. Kyrie Irving streams. I know he has more time with obviously rehabbing and everything, but streaming is the way of the world right now. And one thing that the NBA has done pretty well, which I will give credit to, is they have tapped into that streaming market. They've tapped into the market where they understand that if we're going to get a young fan base, streaming has to be involved. And as much as the All-Star game hasn't been good, as much as there's been a bunch of hit and misses when we talk about All-Star Weekend, one thing that they have done is they've attracted the youth. And that is uber important when we talk about growing the game. And I was wondering, I'm like, okay, I haven't really heard anybody in the streamer world really go hand in hand with the W in their All-Star Weekend. So I was a little like, did they miss the mark there? On top of that, the star of the show, Caitlin Clark, was forced to not participate in All-Star Weekend because of a groin injury. You know, she was slated to do the 3-point contest with Sabrina Descu, and she was also an All-Star captain. And obviously, because it's an indie, that not only is she the most popular player in the WNBA, but, you know, it's an indie, so it makes sense. But I just like, this might be a tough year for the WNBA, especially in their All-Star coverage. And they've done an incredible job. You know, again, shout out to the Stud Buds. They've been pretty much on Twitch streaming everything. And shout out to them, man. Look, there's a bunch of things that I can gripe about when we talk about the W, and I've done it on this podcast. This is not the time. The All-Star Weekend for any sport, because we just saw the Home Run Derby and the All-Star break, so shout out to baseball. And that was exciting. All Star Weekend is solely, well, I'll say it like this. It was to showcase players that other regions in the world was not able to see. Obviously, internet, cable wasn't really a thing back when these leagues started, so a lot of these players only had one time to see their favorite player, and that was the All Star game or All Star Weekend. Some people only saw Michael Jordan play during the All Star game or the NBA Finals because that's the only time they can see them. With the technology era and streaming, All Star has kind of evolved into where this is the best that we have to. We're showing you the best that we have to offer, and that's why you see a lot like the NBA. You see a lot of shoe companies, Nike, Adidas. They drop highly anticipated shoes. It's such a big market. That is All-Star Weekend. And again, I was nervous. I was also nervous. I'll say this. I was also nervous because the WNBA is really about to face something that could potentially change the course of their league, and that is the CBA is coming up. And we've already heard talks about a lockout. I've been on this podcast saying I don't think a lockout is the smartest thing, especially right now with the W and the growth. Obviously, you have 2 teams coming next year. But the CBA is like, this is a huge time for the W. And I don't think that, these negotiations or anything should stop All-Star Weekend or really should have anything to do with All-Star Weekend this year. But I think it's the data that the WNBA players and the Players Association should be continuously gathering is viewership, definitely impressions on social media, and one of the biggest ways and one of the biggest events to get that is All-Star Weekend. Now, yes, it is a bummer that Caitlin Clark can't play, but the last thing I think I want to see, the last thing fans want to see, and the last thing I think the WNBA can afford is a lockout. Especially when you have all this newness rolling in. Again, 2 teams, the Toronto Tempo and the Portland Fire are coming. Not to mention the 3 teams that was announced from next year to 2030, Detroit, Cleveland, and Philadelphia. Like, kind of need to get together. But I will say, as a person that was a little skeptical about, I don't see too much outside of obviously watching the WNBA and watching the games and looking at the commercials, anything. I haven't seen many people talk about the WNBA All-Star Weekend in the same breath. And obviously these are 2 different levels right now, but in the same way as you saw a lot of these streamers talk about the NBA All-Star Weekend and how, Kai Cenat and Drewski played in the celebrity game. I don't think the W has a celebrity game, but still. Again, shout out to the Stud Buzz. They've been incredible. And I think that All-Star Weekend has been good. I know tonight is the game. So I'm excited to see it. I'm excited, and I think they've done a great job in promoting it and everything. So before we move on, I'll say this. I've said this several times on this podcast. I will say it again. The goal of these lists is to draw conversation and to draw attention to these platforms. these platforms could feel the way that they feel. But the reason why you really don't see a unanimous list is because A, people have their opinions, but B, a list that majority of people feel is correct doesn't get talked about as much as a list that everyone thinks is just horrible. In fact, the desired goal of the list is exactly what is about to happen. I'm about to talk about the top 100 ever list from Bleacher Report that continues. I think it gets updated every few years. And these lists are never going to be perfect because these are individual criterias, but and you never really know. They can kind of map it out, but you never really know criteria, because one criteria could say, championships are important. Then they'll have somebody that's never won a championship extremely higher than someone that's won 4 or 5, Or they can say championship is one of the biggest determining factors. Then you never hear Robert Horry's name on these lists, and he has, 7? So the criteria is always different. You never really know. But the top NBA or top 100 ever NBA list was dropped in Bleacher Report, and there is conversation scattered throughout the entire list. You got I think Klay Thompson landed at 98. It's what's David Robinson landed 19. Nikola Jokic landed 17, which is higher than Giannis. That's a conversation. But the biggest conversation landed between 13 and essentially 10. Now, before I go on, let me give you the top 10 from this list. Number 10, Steph Curry. Number 9, Wilt Chamberlain. Number 8, Larry Bird. Number 7, Tim Duncan. Number 6, Shaquille O'Neal. Number 5, Bill Russell. Number 4, Magic Johnson. Number 3, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Number 2, LeBron James. Number 1, Michael Jordan. Now, obviously, those names are going to be just wait. There's obviously a bunch of people that think that LeBron James should be number 1 and not Michael Jordan. You can feel how you feel. There's a bunch of people that think Shaquille O'Neal should be above Bill Russell. You feel how you feel. There's a bunch of people that don't understand how Wilt Chamberlain is 9. Look, I get it. But the biggest conversation stems at number 10. Steph Curry at number 10. Now, one of the reasons why this is a big conversation is because let me go back to 13. Let me start at 14. Let me go from 14 to 10. 14, you have Oscar Robertson. 13, you have Kevin Durant. 12, you have Hakeem Olajuwon. Number 11, you have Kobe Bean Bryant. And number 10, you have Steph Curry. And obviously the conversation is, how in God's name is Steph Curry above Kobe Bryant? I am a Steph Curry fan. Steph Curry is my favorite player to watch. And even I don't think Steph Curry at this point of his career is better than Kobe Bryant. I don't think when it's all said and done, unless he wins 2 or 3 more championships, I'm not going to put Steph Curry over Kobe. That's my opinion. In fact, I have preached on this podcast that when you look at Tim Duncan and you look at Kobe Bryant, they essentially have the same exact accolades outside of, I know Tim Duncan has 2 or I think back-to-back MVPs, but they pretty much have the same accolades. So if they have the same accolades outside of scoring, because Kobe beats him in scoring, and Tim Duncan beats him in rebounds. How is Tim Duncan at number 7 and Kobe at number 11? And you know what is this, people? Please understand this. We are talking about a media organization. I'm almost sure that whoever made this list doesn't think Kobe Bryant is the 11th best player. I don't think. Look, I know a lot of people put Kobe at number 1 or number 2. Like, no, I don't think Kobe is a top 3 player. But I do think for dang sure he's top 5 or top 10. And I'm sure people at Bleacher Report thinks that too. But why do you think we're talking about this right now? We're talking about this right now is because they put someone like Steph Curry above someone like Kobe Bryant. And they knew, which is unfortunate because, again, rest in peace to Kobe Bryant, they knew that was going to be the conversation. Because you know who else they put Steph Curry over that people are arguing about? Hakeem Olajuwon. But Hakeem he's not, as unfortunate as it is, he's not going to get the talk as much as if we put Steph over Kobe. Because there is no metric outside the fact that Steph Curry was on Kobe was on one too. There is no metric that says that Steph Curry outside. I do think that Steph Curry was more influential to the game of basketball than Kobe Bryant. I do agree with that. And I do think that obviously Steph Curry is the greatest shooter ever. But outside of that, I don't see a metric where Steph Curry is better than Kobe Bryant. Especially if you're going to add Tim Duncan at 7. And let me read this off to you. Tim Duncan's top accolades: 5 championships, 2 MVPs, 3 finals MVPs, 15 All-NBA teams, 15 All-Stars, 15 All-Defense. Kobe, 5 championships, 1 MVP, 2 finals MVPs, 18 All-Stars, 15 All-NBA, 12 All-Defense, 2 scoring titles. How do you think that what you just heard from Tim Duncan and Kobe is 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 4 spots different? Again, the reason why we have these lists is to draw controversy. Because controversy gets people like myself, gets people like the Gilbert Arenas podcast, gets people like Sports Center, gets people like the Player's Choice, gets people like Numbers on the Board, gets people talking. And you can feel how you feel about Kobe. And I'm not here trying to change anyone's feeling about Kobe. And I'm not here disrespecting Kobe either. Because, again, I think Kobe is definitely top 10. I wouldn't say top 1 or 2 because I'm not, but top 10, yes. And as much as I love Steph Curry, outside of being more influential, but this isn't an influential list because in that case, Allen Iverson would be in the top 5. Can't say, well, it's because of championships because Kobe has more championships than Steph. Yes, Steph has more MVPs. He has a unanimous MVP. But Kobe has more finals MVPs than Steph. So, again, rest in peace, Kobe Bryant. I do think it's nasty a little bit that they're using Kobe's name to draw a lot of this attention and draw this controversy. And again, I'm not even disrespecting whoever made this, like the panel or whatever that made this list. Obviously, these are their opinions. I may feel differently, but that's my opinion. But what I will say is this. none of these lists are perfect because if they were perfect, we wouldn't talk about them. So, you know. But congratulations to everyone that made the top or Bleacher Report's top 100 ever NBA list. You know, it is interesting that they put Kevin Durant at 13 above Oscar Robinson. Look, I'm one of those people that will stand on the mountain and say that Kevin Durant is better than Larry Bird, but that's just me. Nikola Jokic being at 17 is crazy, but I'm not mad at it. Being over Dirk, I'm not mad at it. You know? Dwayne Wade being at 23 and Giannis being at 24. I'm not mad at it. I'm not mad at it. But again, these lists are literally for controversy and conversation. So, which brings me to the last topic of the show, and that is the NFL top quarterbacks list. Because that came out, and shout out to Jeremy Fowler. He, I think, surveyed a bunch of coaches and executives and asked who they felt the top quarterbacks were in the league. And starting at 10, you have Baker Mayfield, Jalen Hurts, Jared Goff, Justin Herbert, Matthew Stafford, Jaden Daniels at number 5, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, and Patrick Mahomes. Again, these lists are for talking purposes. These lists are for controversy. But a couple things stood out about this list. One, I think it is incredibly crazy how much of a gap there is from the top 4 to the rest. Like, how much of a gap there is when you talk about Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow. I know the next is Jaden Daniels. And again, as a Commanders fan, I think there is a ginormous gap between those top 4 and the rest. I think Jaden Daniels has a chance to be up there, but he's not right now. And I don't know if it's ever really been like that in the league. A gap that wide that it's like you have the top 4, then you have everybody else, and everybody else is quite far. And no offense to anybody, but it's just true. Even in this list, because we're going to talk about the ranking, but even in this list, how close do you think, and I'm a Commanders fan, I want you to remember this, how close do you think Jaden Daniels is to Lamar Jackson? Or how close do you think Jaden Daniels is to Joe Burrow or Josh Allen? Like, come on. Josh Allen, who you can believe what you want and feel how you want. He did just win an MVP last year. The gap between the top 4 and the rest is seismic. Grand Canyon epic. And it's crazy. Now, we get to the top 4, right? Patrick Mahomes 1, Josh Allen 2, Joe Burrow 3, Lamar Jackson 4. My question is this. It goes back to the list we just talked about. What is the criteria? Because in what criteria, in what world, in what metric are you looking that says that Joe Burrow is better than Lamar Jackson? Are you talking about the numbers? Because Lamar Jackson has those too. Are you talking about the head-to-head? Because Lamar Jackson has those too. Are you talking about playoff success? Because Joe Burrow went to a Super Bowl. When did Joe Burrow go to that Super Bowl? 2021? I think 2021 he went to that Super Bowl and hasn't been back since. In fact, now I'm thinking about it, I don't think he's won a playoff game since 2022. On top of that, he's the only quarterback in the top 4 that, ironically, didn't make the playoffs last year. Now, yes, I do think a lot of that was on the defense, but still, what metric are you going off of to makes you think that Joe Burrow is better than Lamar Jackson right now? I get Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. I get it. If you want to say he's number 3, cool. If you want to prop Josh Allen up because of the talent that he had last year that obviously wasn't on the same level as someone like Lamar Jackson had, I get it. And on top of that, Josh Allen beat the Ravens in the playoffs. I get it. Josh Allen won the MVP. I get it. So, excuse me, I may feel that Lamar Jackson is better than Josh Allen. That's my feeling. And I would understand, and I understand the argument in saying that Josh Allen is better than Lamar Jackson. I understand that. I cannot, for the life of me, understand how people think Joe Burrow, who, again, is great, is on the same level as Lamar Jackson. Because when you hear someone talk about Lamar Jackson, what they usually say is, "What have you done for me lately?" What has Lamar Jackson done for me lately? Well, he did, not last year, but the year before, he was in the AFC Championship. Last year, led the Ravens to, I think, second in the AFC, or third in the AFC. That's important. Also a 2-time MVP. Should have been 3 in my opinion, but set a bunch. In fact, what record did he set last year? Set a bunch of records. Became the first player in NFL history with 40 passing touchdowns and 4 or fewer interceptions. Had 10-1 touchdown interception ratio and a 74.4 winning percentage. And he also is the leader in rushing. So, He also led the league last year in QBR, 77.3. Yards per dropback, 8.3. And set a career high in passing touchdowns, 41. And passing yards, 4,172. And yards per attempt, 8.8. And a touchdown to interception ratio. Oh, actually, his top EPA was 160.6, more than 16 points higher than any other quarterback. How can you tell me that Joe Burrow is better than Lamar Jackson? That's all I'm saying. I know Joe Burrow had I think he led the league in passing yards last year, maybe. But they didn't make the playoffs. He also had more interceptions than Lamar Jackson. So, another thing that I kind of wanted to touch on is, when is potential over? I know that sounds crazy, but when do we stop grading or basing someone off of their quote-unquote potential? Joe Burrow's in that list too, but the main person that I'm looking at, and it hurts my heart because he's an Oregon alum. Every time we talk about Justin Herbert, we talk about his talent, and we talk about stuff that he did his rookie year. I understand and the stat that always goes around is he has 2,093 career passing yards, which is the most in NFL through 5 seasons. Cool. He also is 0-2 in the playoffs. And I would argue that he is the main reason why his team lost those 2 games in the playoffs. Talking about against the Jaguars, where they were up huge in the second at halftime and blew a 20-plus point lead to Trevor Lawrence and the Jags, and then threw as many interceptions in one game against the Texans last year than he threw the entire year. I understand if we're talking about talent. I get it. But at some point, success and talent have to meet. That's what they talk about with Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. It's like, okay, Josh Allen just won an MVP last year. Lamar Jackson has 2. They're widely considered top quarterbacks. When are they going to get over the hump and beat Patrick Mahomes or win a Super Bowl? Obviously, I'm not putting him in that category, but when is Justin Herbert going to win a playoff game? When is Justin Herbert's talent going to meet the opportunity? Like, when is Justin Herbert's talent going to shine outside of meaningless games? When is Justin Herbert going? Again, I know the most passing yards in the first 5 years in NFL. Cool. He's still 0-2 in the playoffs. On top of that, the man, he's good. I get it. And I'm not, talent-wise, he's great. Pure talent, but again, when talent has to meet progress, like there's no way, in my opinion, if we're just talking about sheer talent, cool. But if we're talking about everything, there's no way that Justin Herbert and Jared Goff, might add, should be above Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts just won a Super Bowl. MVP, might add. I think that there are some flaws in his game, but he has something that they don't. Oh, man. Hey, Jaden Daniels, though. I'm not mad at it. There you have it. That's been today's episode of the Unpopular Podcast. I truly, truly appreciate you guys. If you want an Unpopular Podcast shirt, hoodie, sweater, long sleeve joggers, the link's in the description below. I have multiple different colors, multiple different designs. Get your Unpopular Podcast merch today. Also, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'm trying to get as many subscribers as possible. Tell a friend to tell a friend if you like the content to subscribe. I'm trying to grow the platform, and I can't do it without you guys. If you are subscribed, please share it to someone that you know isn't, and I hope that they subscribe. Yeah, please follow the YouTube. Also, for DSPs, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, please follow, please subscribe. No platform is bigger than the other. I'm trying to grow the entire Unpopular Podcast, and I cannot do it without you guys. If you want to hear my luscious voice, please, please, please continue to follow, or please send it to someone that you know is not following and tell them to follow, share, comment, everything. It means a lot. Also, my socials, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, that's probably the quickest way to get to me. If you keep it respectful, I don't mind going back and forth. It just means that you're listening to me and you have an opinion, both I care immensely about. So leave in the comment how you feel, and we can go back and forth again, especially on TikTok and Instagram. Those are probably the quickest ways to get to me. So please, please, please follow the socials. Until next time, much love.